Welcome to the Art of Conversation with Noelle, an opportunity to meet good friends, old and new, and celebrate with artists and performers just some of the beautiful assets of this beautiful place. We're here to celebrate Festival Lough Erne. We want to encourage you to get out on the waterways and experience what it has to offer. I'm joined with good friends who are going to explain and to explore what has nourished them during this time. Thank you to everyone who's contributed. Let's continue to make an exhibition of ourselves on and along the waterways. So Olivia, thank you. We're here on the Manapian Curragh.
We are, yeah. We've had great fun on this boat, is all I can describe it. We built it back in 2014. It took us 3 months. We'd over 70 people involved and 2,500 volunteer hours built it over a 3-month period.
Incredible.
And we just, we enjoyed the build. Everybody and anybody involved, from kids of 5-year-old to people who called in from like Positive Futures every Tuesday, people who swept the floor and people who did what they wanted to do. So everybody contributed in a way that they were comfortable, which was important to us as a community project. And when we launched it, we started to float this beautiful curragh down the river and people started to see us, and it took off from there, Noelle.
And this is, I think, my 4th time on it.
Yeah.
I know that you have it moored here at Waterways Ireland, and it's been such a significant part of what you see as well in terms of living life on a healthy life. Certainly on the Erne, and my introduction to Row The Erne, I have to say, has been absolutely brilliant. I'm not quite a water babe yet, but I've been brought up on the shores of Lough Erne and now living here in Fermanagh, and I have to say it has just been an absolute pleasure both to watch you in action, to see what Row The Erne do in terms of the opportunities and access to the water, but also the experience of being out in the lake. And it's very hard to put into words, and yet I know many of us that are involved in the arts and encouraging this whole area of well-being. It's an absolute must experience, and I know that we're celebrating Festival Lough Erne, and the opportunities that go with it, and you're preparing as well for opportunities to introduce people to the lakes.
Yeah, we're having a lovely day with the Lough Erne Landscape Partnership. We're doing a heritage skills day down at Skelton Castle, and we're running a taster session, so we're preparing for that now, and we're getting on the water, and we're going to give people the chance to get on, learn a little bit about the heritage of these boats, and enjoy themselves by having a spin on the boat and getting a flavour for what it must have been like back rowing one of these boats in the Bronze Age and Iron Age up and down these waterways, which of course were the motorways and were the only areas of access that gave people access throughout the countryside, because the whole area was forested. So these boats certainly belong in these waterways, albeit they're prehistoric. So there's not much evidence like other boats, like log boats or that, or would be on the water. But we're looking forward to having some fun with it and introducing heritage by getting involved in it, by being on the boat. So, and we enjoy working with organisations like the Lough Erne Landscape Partnership who get that.
Absolutely, and I've listened to some of the talks and the guest speakers as well about celebrating the waterways and being inspired by the waterways as well, and people like Ciarán McMenamin, people like Richard Pearse, John Kelly. There's so many people, and the lovely thing about this opportunity to speak to you as well, Olivia, is you're one of the many people that have invested a lot of your own personal time in this, and I know we talked before about the importance of Row The Erne and the team spirit and the genuine invitation to people in all ages and stages in life, and it's not just about those that see themselves as athletic or people who are confident in the water. You welcome all ages and stages.
Absolutely. For a lot of folk, the water has been inaccessible for a variety of reasons. Many lack water confidence. maybe they see something as other sports that are on the water as being beyond their resources, etc. So what we've discovered at Row The Erne is it's a really fantastic place to start your journey on the water. We see ourselves very much as the first rung of the ladder. And particularly for people with water confidence issues, we're a big boat, 10 people can row the boat. It's very stable. It sits very lightly on the water as well, so it's easy to row. You don't have to have any experience at all, and come along, and within 25, 30 strokes, people are getting into it and getting the rhythm of it. It is important to us that it's open to everybody and that it's non-competitive. There's lots of, Enniskillen is well known for its competitive rowing and very successfully, and what they do is fantastic at Pretoria Rowing Club. We're very different. We're about participating on the water, enjoying something together, and as we float down the river rowing away, we effectively, watching nature's television as going past, and absorbing that in all kinds of different ways. So it always inspires me when people get different experiences out of being on the Manapian Curragh, and that's always very personally rewarding. Just listening to somebody who said, they were delighted to get back on the water after COVID or whatever.
I personally find it just absolutely brilliant, and I know that the one thing that has been a constant source of nourishment, I've said this before, has been access to the waterways, particularly here in Enniskillen, and it has been a source of nourishment for artists, for educators, for people who want to feel well and feel good. And I mean, I suppose I've been struck by the increasing traffic on the waterways, and that must bring challenges as well as many opportunities. Olivia, I know from one of the recent rows that we were out on, it was amazing to see the scale of the vessels that were on, as well as the increased numbers. Has that posed problems for this?
Well, Curragh? Basically, yes, it gets busier, and when it gets busier, you have to be more careful. I mean, the positives are we're actually, while we might be 33 foot long, we're actually nearly 30 foot wide with our oars out.
Yes.
So those oars provide us with a great safety too, because when they're out, people can see how big we are and give us a lot more room. So, and for us, it's just a matter of embracing everybody that's on the water. We do appreciate that there are different water users, some going fast, some going slow. What we always thoroughly enjoy, and it happened to us recently, is the row, row, row your boat song that everybody feels, absolutely obliged to sing as they go past us. We had a speedboat that does some wakeboarding, and they actually got it on their loudspeakers for us, which was great fun. So to participate with other water users like that, to us is what it's all about. Everybody's enjoying it in the way they want to enjoy it, and that's what's important.
Yes. And what drives you to be involved in this? What drives you to work on this, to cooperate with others? I know you talked about there's a team behind this.
That's right.
People have invested a lot of time in this.
We have a whole committee working behind the scenes, doing everything from the insurance through to, do we need to get new fenders for the boat, what repairs need to be done, all those kind of things, what we're doing online, social media. So we have a great group of committed people who sit quietly in the background, who are the absolute pulse of this organisation. Nobody ever achieved anything on their own, and Row The Erne is no exception or any different in that regard. So I owe a lot to a lot of people who got behind us, including Waterways Ireland, who got behind the concept from the start, which a lot of people find hard to get around. But Don Livingstone, who was in charge at the time, got it right away and gave us this beautiful space on the jetty for a nominal fee, which gives us access for lots of people in terms of parking.
Yes.
And those who are less able to give them access to the boat. That was really important.
And I suppose subsequently then those that followed in terms of John Boyle and the current CEO as well, John. Waterways Erne are a huge asset, I suppose, and the fact that their headquarters are here and Enniskillen has proved invaluable to us for festivals, for celebrating, the waterways and acknowledging all of the opportunities that are there, and of course the ongoing opportunities that are integrated in the wider strategic plan of things here.
Absolutely. I mean, we know that wellness on the water is part of that strategic, those strategic objectives, and that's essentially what we do. We're about wellness on the water, and I suppose when I've rowed large boats like this, around the north coast of Spain, Ireland to Iona, and it was actually during the 2012, City of Culture that Jerry hosted. You were very involved in 2013. Beg your pardon. That I had the opportunity to row this boat back from Iona carrying a boat that children of Iona had made to, you know, reenact Columkill's journey.
Very exciting, because that was the first time I was ever on a Curragh, and that was the Columkill one in Derry. And I know Frank Mongan and yourself and myself have mutual friends, and it was just a brilliant experience. But it's the symbolism, and I suppose the other thing as well is that while scale may be everything, it's the dignity of watching it, you know, as dignified as watching swans. I know I took some photographs as well as part of preparation and promotion of some of the events that you were doing as part of Fermanagh Live, and I know that you've hosted events and film screenings on this Curragh as well, using the sail as the screen. So I mean, I have to say, huge congratulations in terms of the creativity, the inclusion, I suppose, as well, and I think both of us are very committed to this idea of wellness on the water, and supporting, you know, creativity and innovation in all its forms. It struck me as well, and I know that Pat Lunny, who's the guardian of these shores, I see certainly as one of them in terms of how he's captured life on the lake. But certainly I think Row The Erne and the Manapian Curragh has played a huge part in getting people who have never experienced you know, life in the lake ever before.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the most rewarding things when you see people have that aha moment for themselves. You actually see people flourish on the boat from when they get on, and there's maybe, particularly when they get on for the first time, they have a slight nervousness. They think everybody else knows each other very well, which is understandable. And, you know, they have their own reservations about can they row, can they keep in time, you know, etc., etc. And then they settle into it, and they start to flourish for themselves. And I suppose at the essence of who we are, Noelle, is like, you know, we know that inside everybody there's a spark. You know, and Row The Erne is really in the oxygen business.
Absolutely, and I love the idea of what you say about at a time when breathing and open spaces and our health and well-being is a top priority. An opportunity like this is something to be really embraced. And I suppose really, Olivia, for anybody who doesn't know anything about the opportunity here, they get in contact with Row The Erne. How many can you facilitate on this?
Yeah, well, the boat rows with 10 people, so if a group, for example, wanted to take it out, we normally go for, you know, 8 or 9 people, so at least we have 1 or 2 people on the boat rowing as well. We've had people come up and celebrate birthdays from you know, from all over Ireland. We've had schools, we've had primary schools on the boat. You know, we've had, you know, a huge amount of fun. People can get in contact. We do have a website, rowtheerne.com. We are on social media, Facebook, you know, just find us Row The Erne.
And what I found as well, that even though if I choose to come along on my own, not with necessarily a crowd, that if there is room for me, that room is made, and also there's a synergy and an energy, that sense of community on the water is really evident. And you talked about the rhythm. I mean, some of us like to think we have a bit of rhythm maybe on the dance floor, but it's a totally different ball game when you're on this Curragh. But it's lovely even to be able to see that, you know, that it's like what you can achieve together, and the rhythm and the movement and the experience, and of course then stopping then to have coffee and tea and picnics are all part of the experience as well.
Absolutely. You know, we can throw out an anchor and have a cup of tea. I mean, it's a very integral part of what we do. It's also an opportunity for people to get involved in different ways. And when I started with the Columkill as crew, you know, that was a way in for me, was through food. You know, and I became one of the cooks, and then handled all the logistics, and then you know, and that led to me bringing that boat here, which led to this build,
which was really significant, Olivia. And I suppose too, it's a multi-sensory experience, you know, in every sense of the word, really, you know, too.
Not only multi-sensory, but one of the fabulous things about being on this boat is there's great equality. When you're on the oar, you know, you're an oar essentially. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do, or where you've come from, or what you're up to. It's a chance for you to step away from that busy, hectic schedule and slow things down, as you said, get into a rhythm and be part of something that's simply about moving along the water. This beautiful space, not only the tranquility of it, but also the sense of here I am, I can have some fun, I can make some new friends, I can enjoy some outdoor physical exercise.
And get to know a beautiful, not only a beautiful island town, but a galaxy of islands, if you
That's
like,
right, yeah.
and how easy it is to move from the urban to the rural,
Yes.
to the the serenity of it all is very, very palpable.
Very true. Very
you know.
true. I mean, we went out on a morning row the other, last Sunday, and it was exactly that. It was still waters. We had the place to ourselves. Everybody on the boat knew that without having to say it. There's also something very tactile about this boat. If you consider, in essence, we're in a woven basket covered by skin. There's only a quarter of the length of your fingernail between you and the water. You can actually hear the water lapping against the sides. I've slept in these boats coming back from Iona, so your head is literally against the water that you're flowing through, and there's a sense of being part of something that's much bigger.
And I suppose the other aspect I have noticed actually being out with Row The Erne is this sense of dignity and respect for the water. And as Paddy mentioned earlier about this idea about it being your friend, you have to be in rhythm with what nature has provided as well.
Right.
But the respect that to show each other while out in the water as well. And I know that you're heavily involved with the RNLI as well, Olivia. That's a very important part of your life in the water.
Yeah, I mean, I had the opportunity to crew with the RNLI and have enjoyed it for the last 6 years. Every day is a school day when you're on the boat. They're a great group of guys and girls. So, and we enjoy it, and we provide that level of safety to others on the water who get a little bit stuck here and there. So it's a great organisation to be involved.
I know that you're preparing to get out in the water and prepare for the weekend as well,
That's right,
Olivia.
yeah.
And all I would say is just for everyone just to take up the opportunity. It's just too good of an opportunity to miss.
Absolutely.
It's been a few years now since this plan was worked. No boat, no bikes been found.
So, Mark and Angela, it is lovely to be here on the NOLA Barge. This is now your home, and we're in glorious Fermanagh. And you have chosen to come here a bit like myself. You are blow-ins that have stayed, and you're living here how many years now?
Well, we're living on board the boat now, and you're very, very welcome, of course, Noelle, firstly. But we're living on board now 3 years. We had the boat commissioned in Stoke-on-Trent, and it was brought over and launched here in Lough Erne 3 years ago in May past, and we have lived aboard full time since. The boat coming onto the lakes here coincided with us both taking early retirement from work and wanting to enjoy some time on the water, meeting friends and pursuing some of the hobbies and the lovely things in life that we enjoy doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I found a video this morning of us about 12 years ago on a barge in the middle of winter, cutting literally a channel of ice through the ice up near Lough Erne. And I think Anne had 3 pairs of socks on and a pair of tights on, 2 pairs of tights on, a pair of jeans, and we were like 2 abominable snowmen, and Anne just said, "This is our dream to live here." And that was 12 years ago, and we accomplished our dream.
And what a dream! I mean, I know you now. It seems like a lifetime, And
We're like a bad penny.
Yeah, but the lovely thing about it is we share a lot of mutual interests as well, and friends as well. And I know I was first introduced to you by good friends Mary and Jorn that own the Lovely Leitrim Barge, who are characters in their own right, and again find Enniskillen and Fermanagh very much their home as well. And what has struck me is there's a lovely camaraderie between those that live on the lakes and live in the water, and there are many people here like Pat Lunny, who's the guardian for me of the lakes, and I know Paddy is recording all of this for us, but there's a beautiful sense of community, And
Very
certainly
much so.
from talking to you the first time that I met you, I know, Angela, you in theory took early retirement.
Yes.
From what? Would you like to say a wee bit about that and what it is you
Yes,
do?
well, I worked, my profession was nursing all my life, and mental health nursing.
Yes.
And I was from working in the hospital, Hollywell Hospital in Antrim, to the community, and I worked as a CPN out in White Abbey. And then I went into working with children with cancer. And that's where I retired from in the end, working along with Cancer Fund for Children. And throughout my career, it's been working with people, and I've always loved that. That's been the biggest love of my life, not alone just caring for people who have been mentally unwell or mentally ill, but also just in general, meeting people, hearing people's stories, and loving life, meeting people, because you do find, Noelle, and like you meeting us, everyone has a story.
That's right.
And I have just a genuine interest in people's lives, and I love hearing about them. So that sort of led me throughout a wonderful career in nursing, right down to I retired, living on the lakes, loving the lakes, then coronavirus happening, us being a bit socially isolated, as everyone was,
Yes.
and life was difficult and lonely and quiet, to then re-registering on the emergency COVID register and becoming a vaccinator and doing my training for that. So that then has taken me on another tangent, but I've been able to remain on the boat and actually sail to my place of work, which has been lovely.
Because you initially were working from the Lakeland Forum here in
Yes,
Enniskillen.
yes. And I was working in there doing the vaccinations, so I was able to moor outside and jump across the grass. And then
I could have her lunch ready for at lunchtime, so
And
didn't have too far to
you
travel.
couldn't write it, but I think one of the first things that struck me in meeting both of you was a lovely sense of compassion, and then of course that we share a huge interest in creativity as well. And you mentioned as well too, Angela, the first time I met, that you had a fond interest in the whole area of quilting, and something that you developed and you explored that. But you also worked in a context as well in the prison sector, where you would have witnessed artists in residence. And I remember we had that conversation as well.
Yeah, in the work of being a mental health nurse manager, I would have worked with people who had mental ill health and who were, because of their mental illness, in prison. And during that time I had the opportunity of meeting writers, artists, teachers who were all trying to work with people who had offended, and helping them to explore their own creativity. And as you can imagine, the artwork within the prison setting was amazing, and something that intrigued me. But I was also intrigued with the area of mental health, and I don't think that was at us, but we'll wait anyway.
We're famous.
The area of mental health, and we hear so much about it today, and promotion of positive mental health, and we see it on the lakes and all the things that we love to do that are really good for us, and that some people don't have that opportunity. But through my very early training in getting people involved in the arts, in occupational therapy as it was known as then, bringing them out, letting them knit, letting them sew, letting some of the men make some bird boxes, take them out into the gardens to do some gardening, and how that promoted their mental health in days gone by that we didn't actually recognise
I know.
that was something that was really, we knew it was helping them, but we didn't know the science behind how it was helping them. So that's been lovely, and that's where I then got into making quilts. And I was off work for a while, and I wanted to do something, I wanted to make something, I didn't know what, and I had this urge to learn how to sew. And there was a lovely woman at the time that I had met through another field, and she said, well, I can teach you the basics. I'm not a teacher, but I can teach you the basics. And that was lovely, because that was somebody who wasn't an expert and didn't know all the theory of teaching, but she taught you exactly all the little steps that you had to take to get into quilting. And I loved making quilts, and that was really good for my own mental health, for my own escapism. And at the time I had a very good friend that died, and I made a quilt that I just thought reflected some of her life.
Lovely.
And I dedicated that quilt to her, and then I found myself doing this more and more. And I lived in the country at the time, and I got involved with some women who were farmers' wives, rural women, and we got together and we used to put on little displays of what we had made. Should it be cooking, making cushions, making pictures, whatever it was, painting, artwork, whatever, and we put that together. We used to raise money for charity, and we put it together in a little local hall, and then we would have been sitting there maybe talking about how we made the thing, and people coming in and out were genuinely interested in it, and it helped us raise money for some local charities then. So we developed a little group then with those ladies, rural ladies, and I suppose the name that we adopted at the time wouldn't now be politically correct, so I'll just call them the Lovely Ladies. And we got together and we sewed and we made quilts and we made presents for people if there was something big coming up, and we all shared our skills. And that's where my craft work comes from now. I'm not a brilliant artist, and I'm not by any means a brilliant quilter, but I love sharing the skills that I have to help people get started and help people achieve something that they've made and gift it to other people, because I always feel that giving gives you as much pleasure as getting something.
So the Cruising Quilter is one of your other identities. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so during lockdown, I mean, I was using my machine and making quilts, and dear love Mark, I'm talking about my own mental health. His mental health suffered because, I had so much stuff on board that we didn't ever plan to have.
Always covered in thread.
Yes.
And they say, Angela, there's thread everywhere. But we were meeting up with some friends and sharing some of what we were doing. And the question that people ask us day and daily is, what do you do all day? What do you do when you're living on a boat all day?
Yes.
And some days are just not long enough for Mark and I. But the making of quilts during lockdown was great for me because I had fabric here and I was able to have that time for my own creativity. And I made some quilts and I called them the Corona series.
Very good.
And again, they were very traditional because I feel that quilting has gone back years and years and years, right to the Egyptians, right back in Irish times. And of course in Ireland we have our linens and all the fabrics that were made here in our country that we're very famous for. And I just love the whole issue around textiles and putting things together. And now in modern day living, the repurposing of lots of things, because we're talking about saving our world and saving our environment. So people have asked me to make little quilts out of clothes that their baby wore for the first time, some memory quilts of people who have passed, and they've asked if I could use some of their clothes or something that would reflect some of their life.
Yes.
And I love doing that. I love putting it together, and sometimes I don't have a plan, it just happens. I don't go by patterns, but the Corona series was very much the double Irish chain and the Irish chain quilts because they're very traditional, and I thought being on the barge. So we were with friends, we were chatting about it, and they said, oh, here comes the Cruising Quilter, and so that's how it came about. And they said, Angela, why don't you share some of this work on a Facebook page or whatever? And when I was doing the bits of teaching online, it sort of became that identity, the Cruising Quilter, and then when you're sitting out on deck, it's lovely to have a quilt to throw over your knee. And
there's something really comforting about that, even the act of making it. And when we look at times when we feel that we are feeling vulnerable or disconnected, that idea of having something, it's like a hug, to have
around,
something tactile that we can touch and hold and experience. And I mean, I suppose you have the best of both worlds. I mean, you've designed this, what seems to be a labour of love. I mean, you talked earlier, Angela, about the barge, and I know even the name of the barge, Mark, is very, very precious to you, and you've captured it beautifully. I mean, I know your own background as a graphic designer, as an artist in your own right. I mean, this literally is a work of art. And I suppose one of the first questions I asked was, how did you fit it all in? How did you design it that it would work? Because as a lady who has several wardrobes and access to those sometimes can be a challenge. I'm just curious to know, where do you put everything? So,
Well,
Mark, you know, how did the whole idea?
Gosh.
How did it all evolve?
Well, as I said, Angela and I, fortunately, we fit like a glove together, and we both. This was our common dream, was to be here on the barge. It really helped that we'd come from a house to an apartment beforehand.
Okay.
So you do tend to rationalise your wardrobe, and you sort of learn to live
Yes.
in smaller spaces. But even the jump from an apartment to a barge is a leap of faith in terms of Angela's number of shoes. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
she was very well known for her Imelda Marcos amount of shoes.
Yes.
So
I'm with you there,
yeah,
sister.
so we had to
I'm
be,
with you.
we had to be, and I have to say, it's not a 50-50 arrangement in the bedroom. There's definitely a lot more space dedicated to
We're
Angela.
80-20.
Or 90-10.
But then, of course, a happy wife means a happy husband. That's the way it goes, you
That's
know.
it. But no, we were very fortunate whenever we identified the company that we wanted to build the barge. They were amazing to work with because we were able to travel across to Stoke and meet up with them. They had a CAD designer who sat with us and helped us to plan each room. And I guess it helped that we were familiar with the process of design.
Absolutely, because designing is your background.
That's my background. So, and the other thing that we really benefited from was that we were able to go onto other people's barges at the different stages of build.
Yes.
So that triggered different ideas in our heads. Saying, "Oh, I love the idea of that," or the way these doors open, or the way this galley is laid out. So, taking inspiration from other people and adapting a lot of their ideas. And I mean, I know, for example, Angela completely designed the galley kitchen because the manufacturers had never built the kitchen like that before. And there's a lot of thought went into it, and it's really,
It's
I mean,
beautiful.
we've reaped the benefits of it. Even the practicalities of having things at eye level, like the oven and
Yes.
silly
Well,
things.
you're eye level. You're eye level.
You know, but rather than climbing down to see if the chicken's cooked, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's been a lot of fun. And you're asking about the name.
Yes, I know it's a very special name for you.
So it's an interesting story. When I bought my first boat here 27 years ago, it was a little 18-foot day boat with a cuddy cabin. I likened it to getting into a coffin at night because you literally had to go in feet first to get into bed.
And you're not from here originally,
No,
so you've been sailing here this last 27 years. So this.
I've had a boat here for 27
Okay.
years, but even longer. You know, where
Okay.
my family would have done the old sort of hiring a cruiser from Commander Clayton way back in the day, and my love was just to sort of stand behind the steering wheel, and it never went away. I always fancied it, and thankfully I was able to take it on board. No pun intended. So yeah, it was something that I enjoyed. But one of my first journeys was to Belturbet. And it was at the end of the season, and it was starting to get really cold. And I remember that particular night going to the very end of navigation and tying up, and it was so cold that when I opened the canopies, they crunched.
Oh God.
They were nearly frozen. And just literally in the background there's this little traditional Irish bar called Flynn's, and I went up to Flynn's and I had a couple of pints, but it was one of those old bars that there was no Wi-Fi, no TV, no music. It was just people. And it was all the old men sitting at the bar, drinking their pints of porter and telling stories, and the woman sort of sitting behind, but everybody was engaged, and they made you feel very welcome very quickly. And within minutes somebody was singing an old song, and somebody was telling a story and reciting poetry. It was just like taking a step back in time. And the woman behind the bar, Mrs. Flynn, she was an astute woman, and she said to me, "You're on the boat." In other words, you're the only agent at this time of the year on a boat. And she said, "I'll do you a jar before you go." So she made a hot water bottle. And sent down to the boat with a hot water bottle in case you freeze overnight, you know. And years later I went back and recited the story back to her, and she said, "Whatever happened to him? Did he die of hypothermia, that lad?" And I said, "No, that was me." So from then on we became really good friends, to the point where whenever Anne and I were deciding where to have our wedding reception, we said to Mrs. Flynn, "Look, can we have our wedding reception here in the bar?" "I'd be delighted. I'd be honoured. I'll be your second mother." So she was amazing.
Isn't that just?
And
That's
you know what?
gorgeous.
They went to such efforts to make sure that we had a special day even more special.
You must be the first wedding they ever had.
I think we were.
Yeah,
I think we
yeah,
were.
we were.
We were the start of a whole new event management regime for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were.
Absolutely.
And she told everybody about the pig was brought to the garden, the beer garden. So we had a
Hog roast.
hog roast.
Yes.
And how the pig was brought to Belturbet, and everybody that came into the bar, all the locals, were all invited by Mrs. Flynn that day.
They all got some hog roast.
They all got hog roast, and she just couldn't get over this. She loved it, and she did. She became a really good friend.
She was a lovely. And then when it came to naming the boat, Angela, and I hadn't even thought of it, to be honest. She said, "Oh, sorry, I missed part of the story. Go ahead."
Mrs. Flynn was always referred to as Mrs. Flynn.
Yes.
Everybody came into the bar. Hello, Mrs. Flynn. Hello, Mrs. How are you, Mrs. Flynn? Everybody. And we'd known her for years. And I was sitting with her one night by the fire, and I said, "Mrs. Flynn, do you mind me asking you, what is your name?" And she said, "Angela, my name's Nola." She says, "But nobody ever calls me by my name. They all call me Mrs. Flynn." And I said, "Oh, it's such a gorgeous name." And she said, "It's a lovely name," she said, "and very few." She said, "My husband, obviously, my late husband, called me Nola." She said, "But everyone else refers to me as Mrs. Flynn." So I said to Mark, wouldn't it be lovely if we called our boat Nola? Because she always wanted to have a boat on the lakes, and she just didn't ever have that opportunity. So we asked her permission if we could, when the boat was ready, if we could name it Nola. And she said we could. She would be absolutely honoured. And then she came to the boat.
She threw a party. She came to the boat. She made a 20-minute speech on the deck to an assembly of friends and family.
So how long ago was that then?
That was on the 9th of June 2018. So we have the plaque there. She unveiled the plaque
for us.
And
she invited the local priest to come along to bless the boat. She said, "Do you mind?" I said, "We need all the help we can get. It's not a problem."
Yes.
And we had a super day with her. And now, even more relevant, unfortunately, Mrs. Flynn was one of the first people to get coronavirus in Cavan and died of COVID. Was one of, I think, the first person in Belturbet to die of COVID. So unfortunately, we've missed her a lot, because she did want to get out on the boat again and have a sail, and we had arranged that we would meet them in Enniskillen and take her a sail to Devonish and back. But that didn't happen, unfortunately. But we have all the wonderful memories that she came, and that the boat, and she did talk the day of the launch, that she said, "When I'm no longer on this earth, there's a boat with my name on it going up and down Lough Erne."
And we found out recently, just to continue the story.
Yes.
We had done a piece which ended up sort of going viral in my Fermanagh on Facebook. And then we were contacted by a young woman who said, "I've been trying to find you for months." And we said, "Who are you?" She said, "My partner and I were walking around Tully Castle last year, and we did the walk along the shore, and it brings you out to the Tully Castle jetties." I said, "There was only one boat at the jetty, and it was a barge." And she said, "When I saw the barge, it was called Nola." And she said that very same day they discovered that they were having a girl. So they called their little daughter Nola. So we're kind of hoping that we'll be able to catch up with them over the next few days and meet Nola and introduce Nola to Nola.
Isn't that a gorgeous story? And I know, in terms of the mutual friends that we have and the interests, and I mean, the lovely thing as well too, Mark, your own story is really interesting in terms of your own commitment and dedication to design, and this was a beautiful book you shared with me to celebrate your own retirement. I mean, you have retired. I share the fact that we have refired, both Angela and I, in terms of beginning again, but in terms of your own skills and your own creativity, you seem to be the perfect match in terms of how you live your life, how you manage, the opportunities, and still have breathing space, on a beautiful barge in a beautiful part of the world.
Well, whenever we agreed to retire, I thought we were going to retire, but we half of us didn't retire. But I've enjoyed being part of all the things that Angela's been doing. She's been doing the classes, and she's been quilting, and which has also been doing a lot of crafting, and helping older people through the therapy of craft to engage with each other through lockdown and through Zoom, and it was an incredible thing that she did. There was a lot of logistics behind the scene to get to where she got to, and she was getting packs distributed to these people through lockdown, and I mean, she did an amazing job. So helping her and being a part of that, she kept me on my toes.
Well, it is event management of sorts as well, and in terms of the project that you're working on at the minute, Angela, you're working with a group of older people.
Yes, I'm working with along with the Southwest Age Partnership, and we're doing a project at the minute where we are designing our own journal, and it's called a Forget-Me-Not journal. So I'm asking them as a group to look at things about themselves that they would like to be remembered when they're no longer on this earth, and it's encouraging the conversation about death and dying. Because we know now that by not talking about it, it's creating family problems and legacies which are difficult and whatever. For people to recognise them, to look at themselves and think about, you know, how I am as a person and what qualities do I have and what lovely things do I have to be remembered by. And we were having a bit of a laugh about it, Mark and I, because I said to Mark, one of the things that I love to look at is how people sign their name as their signature, because throughout my life and throughout my career I've had to sign my name so many times, and it's become a bit of a laughing stock with Mark and I because I can never spell Mullholland right.
Yes.
I'm still getting it wrong after all these years of marriage.
One and then two.
Yes.
One and then two, and I
Yeah.
insist on putting 2 and 2. But anyway, I've now designed this signature where I can get off with if I make the mistake that you can't really see.
Scroll.
You know,
But I wanted people to sign their journal at the end so that we have a record of what people's signature looks like, that their own personal family have that. You know, I just think that that's lovely.
A lot of fun trying to identify the different types of things that should go into the journal, because it's very personal for each
It is
individual.
very personal.
But I enjoyed being a part of that, because Angela was saying things like, you know, she has a cousin who makes the most amazing wheaten bread, and you know, you've always got a granny who she used to make the most amazing whatever. To get those recipes recorded
and that's so
to be
precious.
passed down,
Yeah.
and you know, what they used to do when they were younger. That you know,
What was their fashion when they were a teenager?
what sort of music they like to listen
Yes.
to, all the things that die with people
And
sometimes.
yet it's culture. But the lovely thing we were talking earlier, culture is to be celebrated all year round and through all generations.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful opportunity here to see your work, you making your mark, and just wish you loads and loads of happy times together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
Thank you.
on and off
Thank
the
you.
barge,
Brilliant.
and continue to make your mark. Thank you so much.
It's lovely to see
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Noelle.
you, Noelle.
It's
Yes.
been lovely to have you on board today.
It's been a few years now since this birdline was word. No boat, no bike's been found, but still the world goes round and round. And I know one day I'll roam when the time to roam is right. Until then I'll sing this song, and I'll sing it till the night.
Pat, it is great to see you, and it's always brilliant to be out in the boat with you.
It's even better to be out in the boat full stop, Noelle, which is what I do, you know.
Yeah,
So
and I know I've heard you refer to this as your cathedral, and we literally are in your element and in mine at the minute. It's absolutely beautiful.
yeah, well, as I've said to so many people recently, that in your life, if you're lucky, you'll have 3 loves,
Interesting.
right?
You'll
have someone to love,
Okay.
okay? I nailed that one. a long,
A
I'll
lucky
tell you.
man. A lucky
Yeah.
man. You're rock.
Somewhere to love. I mean, what's not to love about living in Enniskillen
Yes.
and on the Erne?
Yes, and as a blow-in, I have to concur. 38 years here, it is.
Yeah.
It's the place to be.
And something to love. Boating, fishing. And here's the key to it all. If the first love doesn't object to the second 2 loves, you've nailed.
And I think you have, Pat. I
Yeah.
remember when we celebrated your work at a lovely exhibition in Waterways, Ireland a few years ago as part of Fermanagh Life, and you paid tribute to your wife. and you refer to her as your rock. And they do say behind every man there's a great, great woman.
Oh, that's true.
And it was a lovely celebration of not just your love of the lake, but also your love of photography and capturing very, very precious moments on the lake as well.
Yeah, well, you see, there are some people. I was out with a friend last night, and he was catching a fish. He's from Manchester, and he was in the middle of reeling in a nice fish when he said to me, "I'd been dreaming of this for the last 3 years." And I was out with another friend last Saturday, and he was getting a fish, and he had been on holidays all week. He lives here. He'll actually be coming out later on today with me.
Yes, yes.
But he was saying about, me holidays are over. I said, but you think, he's from Nottingham, and the Forest aren't doing well at the moment, so he's very sad. But I said, just think of your friends who are here this week at the competition. They're actually going back. They'll not be here to maybe next year. And yet you're sort of concerned because your week's holidays up, but you're still here and you'll be out here with me next week. Do you understand? So the idea that I often used to think, a few times I went away to the Canary Islands, do the people who live in sunny places like that get up in the morning and go, oh, it's lovely here? Probably not, because sometimes the sun and the heat can be sort of just unrelenting, which is no good, as we know when we get a couple of decent days. But to me, this is always here.
It's beautiful.
And
It's
I get
absolutely
up
beautiful.
and like, if you're lucky enough to be well, which of course you have to be to appreciate anything.
Yes.
But you know, if I get up, or I'm going to bed at night, I'm going, I can go out in the lake tomorrow. Or just as much, really, I might think, the children will be about tomorrow, and the grandchildren, you know. And some of them are young enough yet not to be fooled by the old boy blethering on or doing things. But it's just the fact that you can look forward, like we all have to have something to look forward to.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting too, Pat, because you talk about, you know, the love of the lake and the love of the waterways, and it was beautiful to watch the Chronicles of the Erne, and I know you feature in it quite a bit. As I see it, you're the guardian of these shores and this lake, and it was lovely to see and witness firsthand the joy that you had in sharing that with your grandchildren. And I know that you have more grandchildren since.
Yes.
And Paddy's filming this as well with, you know, in mind. I'm thinking of his grandchild
Oh,
too.
he's been out.
He's been out.
I'll not get my phone and start showing you pictures of him out, but way back in June.
So the youngest grandchild is what age now? Paddy's?
Torin is 8 months.
8 months.
8 months, the end of this week. No, the end of next week. Who's fighting over a few days. And the oldest is 22 and has just finished graduating, and is,
Isn't that brilliant?
that's the two, the oldest and the youngest. But hey, listen, they're all, and they say, you know, if you can be grateful in your life, it's very beneficial health-wise. And
Gratitude is a very important part of our lives.
But there's so many people can't really mine any gratitude from their experience. Whereas
suppose-
mine is just one after another. I'm going, wow, where did it all go wrong? You know?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, Pat, because I'm reminded of the fact that this last 18 months in particular has been a very difficult time for people during lockdown, and for many, the breathing space and the nourishment has been the lakes and the shore and walking around this particular area.
We have fabulous walks in this town.
It's beautiful, and I know you have a particular interest in supporting the local community and mental health and wellbeing, and I know you've done a lot of work with Action Mental Health and with Cancer Connect and many others. And I remember you brought us out, Breda McGrennan and friends Mary Ellen and Brian, over to Bluebell Island just before the season finished, and it was just an absolute delight, an absolute delight. And I suppose as a fellow educationalist, you have always encouraged your pupils, and I remember the lovely tribute that John Kelly paid to you as his teacher, and how you inspired a love of the lake and his poems, and you appear in one of his poems.
Well, he dedicated one of them to me. And the irony is, the poem is called Pike. And I don't fish for pike. But sort of the seed of that poem that John wrote on pike, I could bring you to where he got that seed. and I can remember the moment. And the fact that he can, I was talking there about people being able to mine sort of joyful things from their life if they're lucky. And John's able to mine wee moments in life like
Absolutely.
that. One of his poems is about bird watching. And I couldn't believe it, like, because it would be a way back in time that he would have understood these things. But the poem starts, I think, the finches lived in Derrin Road, and the martins and the, I wonder what other bird, the swifts lived next door to each other in Corbin Avenue. And those were the surnames of 3 families. Do you understand?
And I first came to Enniskillen in 1983, and I lived in Cornagreat with Peggy Donegan and a good friend Dolores, and I've been in Fermanagh ever since.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just been a place to retreat, to recreate, and to celebrate. And you talk there about mining deep, and we all carry precious cargo within all of us, but moments like this are priceless.
But you see, I'm also very conscious of the fact that there are not very many, if any, sad moments in my life that sort of have an impact on how I see things. We all kind of, you get to a point when you're as old as I am and think, oh my God, how lucky am I to be able to climb down into this boat.
Yes.
Like
yes.
my brother Dermot can't get in as easily as I can, and yet when I got this boat, which was only 2 years ago, he was able to access it, and he appeared in one of those. I never watched it,
Oh, it's
but
a
it was the
beautiful
most
programme.
perfect evening, like sunset-wise, calm as this, perfect. One of those, I don't know, we might get 20 of them a year, but we happened to make it that year, so that was perfect, you know. But I was fishing down a place called the Pump House Shore Saturday week, and a guy came past in a boat way out, and he shouted "Low Pat" to me, and while I'm blessed to have good eyesight, I couldn't make out who it was, and I shouted, "Who are you? Who's that?" And he told me, he says, "It's Martin Clifford." He says, "You've got a new boat," and I say, "Yeah." He says, "It's a queer long time since you brought me out in P6, and I'm going, that was nice. And
Ciara McMenamin said the same as
Yes,
well, that you
well-
would have been very, very good in encouraging this idea of getting out in the lakes and fishing and a love of the environment,
well,
you know?
I think if the school I taught in, if it was next door to Carnoustie Golf Club, or Twickenham Rugby Club, or Croke Park,
Yes.
that you would feel the local children need to have ownership of those places because they're renowned. And I thought, there's a boat after going past. And those people are paying probably 4 figures to enjoy for a few days what I can, and my grandchildren and my friends and people can enjoy for nothing once they've got their little boat.
And I suppose the lovely thing as well too, and this is one of the things I wanted to do, was to celebrate the different scales of boats and vessels, all on voyages, on their own voyages. And I suppose we're all on a voyage of discovery, from the wee red boats to the barges, to your boat, to the likes of the lovely ones, the lovely opportunities that you can celebrate in, you know, as visitors or as residents of this gorgeous place.
Well, you know, away in the past when I would have heard Christy Moore's The Voyage, it would have meant nothing to me.
Yes.
And now that my crew has grown, you realise just the guy, whoever it was that wrote that song, was wonderful.
Well, you look at the source. I mean, this is a beautiful place. It's no coincidence, I think, that there's so many artists and creatives and writers and performers from this place because of the source. You know, you as a photographer, as an educator, as a grandfather, as a father, you know, can see this and it's palpable. And I think the lovely thing, Pat, is your generosity in wanting to share that.
Well, you were talking about sort of understanding things. There's a song at the moment, can't think the wee lassie's name, brilliant Dublin singer. It's called Diamonds Beneath Our Feet. And really what it's about is understanding the real beauties and precious things in life, which are not the words diamonds themselves, but what we've got with us.
I suppose the extraordinary and the ordinary.
Yeah. Well, when I was coming out here the other day with my friend from Manchester, I met a couple of local lads, and I was thinking, if this was an inner city area, what would we be doing? what would, they were sitting, they can access it. And so many people, like you're talking as if I'm the only person has an understanding or a total. These guys understand you can come out. As long as you've got good gear.
Yeah.
The only difference in
And
summer
safe, and
summer
safe.
and winter is cold rain and summer is warm rain. And other than that, it's magical. I've got, recently got a GoPro and I have footage of this particular place where we are now at the beginning of the Batora stream in early spring. Oh man, the bird song is something else, you know. And
That's when you took us out, I think,
Well-
to the Bluebell Island. Pat, I
well,
think.
yes, well this particular footage was got this year.
Okay.
And if you can imagine because this is a very narrow stream, the echo and the sound, it is just something else. And you think, there's something, hopefully I'll do again. None of us know what we'll do again.
Nobody.
And, you know, if I'm lucky enough to be able to do it, and, you know, in some ways, we collect things in our life. We want to be connected and we want to collect. But what do we want to collect? And a lot of what we collect at this stage, I'm not going to myself, I don't know what I spent 60 years collecting that for. But what I've collected is sort of a growing, it's kind of like, it's a patois that's part of me. It's an understanding that this is, you know, if heaven ain't as good as this, I'm not interested. Whatever this heaven place might be for those who have a big love for it. Because this, I'm in heaven here.
Absolutely.
End of story.
And who inspired you, Pat? Who inspired you?
We're all inspired by everything that surrounds us. And the bottom line is that starts off in your family, at home. And the point is, I was born in Henry Street, which I could still throw a stone into the lake from the doorstep, I think.
Yes, yes.
And then I moved to Cornagrade, so, like, I mean, you can see that they're now just developing the footpaths around the place. That was my playground when I was young.
Great people
And
there.
I suppose when you're on the shore those days, you saw people out in a boat, and maybe I thought, I got to have a boat. And the first boat I bought was an old wooden one. And you were asking me, was there a name on this boat? And at that time, one of my cousins was in a folk group and had a pop hit in Ireland. It was a pop hit that he never liked being reminded of because it was poppy.
Yes.
And he's brilliant folk musician. But the song was called Voyages.
Right.
Right? Now,
Donald, was that Donald?
Donald, yes. But the song itself, Voyages, is based on a boat that floundered.
And we learned that at school.
And I called me boat. Unfortunately, putting the name on it, I put it on it in those days, we're talking here 50 plus years ago, in the way it would have been written in Irish. So people would come along the shore and they would look at this huge, long, indecipherable word and they goes, what does Beadin Fedlamid mean? And I realised, come on. It was a bit like when I used to bring the children out from the class for a nature walk around the shore, which is now part of their curriculum. So we would have walked around the shore and I suppose I was glad to get out of class. They thought they were glad, not half as glad as I was.
Well, the lovely thing too, Pat, about your exhibition that was in Waterways Ireland, and we were very grateful to Waterways Ireland for supporting us all during and throughout the Fermanagh Live Arts Festival days, was that they decided then that they would buy some of your collection to be used as part of their education programme. And when you talk there about, you know, what nourishes us as educators and as students, sure, we're all lifelong learners, and every day is a school day.
Oh, you better believe it. There's another lad that taught many years ago who knows more about this lake than if I lived to be 1,000, I wouldn't know. And he was talking what you're after saying there. You know, and when he was at school, he was lucky enough to come from a house where they realised that education's important, but there are other things that are just as and maybe more important. And him and his brothers became part of a family that were eel fishers. Now the eel fishing is banned now in Europe.
I didn't realise
because
that.
there was apparently a shortage. Now, unfortunately, nobody told the eels, because when we go out fishing, we catch the damn things,
Yes.
and we don't want to catch
Yes.
them. But
Yes.
currently, Eugene's involved in a project sponsored by the ESB, I think. Him and Roy at the moment have nets there at the gates down below us and down below at Devonish. And last year, I think they caught over 5 tons of eels. So tell me that
My
the eels
goodness.
are there's no shortages of them in Lough Erne. And those eels are brought to the estuary where they're let out, and then they will head off to the Sargasso Sea where they breed and return. You know, so what Eugene and people, like what I call Nadini Lacha, the people of the lake, like it's sort of I've just conjured it up myself, and you have to be very special to be allowed to be included in Nadini Lacha.
Well, I'm an honest Irish labourer and I come from the county Clare. And once I had a farm there with not much left to spare, and I had to take me donkey and me little billy goat. And with the money I received out of Glasgow, took the boat in the morning when I landed there, and before me hair was dry, I landed up in the Nicky Dam in a place they call Mowbray. Oh, and the ganger that looked over us, so they called him John the Mouse. And the very next day I started there, well, to me he made a grouse. But I quickly didn't surprise him. I said, you little rat, I'll tie a string all around your neck, I'll toss you to the cat. I'm as strong as any lion, I was reared on eggs and ham. I'm a terror to all fighting men all around the Nicky Dam. Ah, well, this rose the mouse's temper, and to me made a jump. And I swore I'd paralyse him with the handle of a pump. But I quickly didn't surprise him, and I grabbed him by the throat. I shook that ugly monkey till that tail fell off his coat. For I'm as strong as any lion, I was reared on eggs and ham. I'm a terror to all fighting men all around the Nicky Dam. Big hotels they're stumping, and they call them navvy huts. And the mites and fleas that live in the bed, they're as big as coconuts. But on Friday night when I get rare and I stand behind the door, and as they march out one by one, I'll bash them to the floor. For I'm as strong as any lion, I was reared on eggs and ham. I'm a terror to all fighting men all around the Nicky Dam. I'm as strong as any lion, I was reared on eggs and ham. I'm a terror to all fighting men all around the Nicky Dam.
Look, it is lovely to meet you, and thank you very much for performing for us. We're here in the lovely Island Discovery vessel, water taxi, performance space, and what a venue. I mean, this has huge potential, hasn't it? Barry was very visionary when he came up with this idea.
Yeah, no, for sure, it's amazing actually. And as a nice quirk, I think the acoustics aren't too bad in here either, so I don't know whether he thought about that beforehand, but it certainly sounds good.
Well, you're back home on home turf. You're originally from Enniskillen.
I am, yeah.
Born and bred.
Born and bred, yeah.
Yeah. And you're currently in Belfast. You're working in the university, you were telling me?
That's right, I work for the Institute of Global Food Security, which is in the School of Biological Sciences.
And so what do you actually do there?
I do a couple of things. So over lockdown we're mostly working from home, so we weren't really allowed to be in the lab there for a long time, only for very short periods. So I developed an online learning platform for students and members of the lay community for a consortium which deals with analytical methods for the detection of potential weapons of bioterrorism. So that was good fun. Like, you know, you learned about like ricin and abrin and molecules like this, you know, and then now on the day-to-day in the lab I'm developing these biosensors to help detect toxins in shellfish. So this would be for, you know, shellfish farmers that are looking to harvest their crop. You know, they're not quite sure if the shellfish has been infected with with toxins from, because they feed on algae, you see. So we're just developing these new methods to hopefully help the testing on site as it is. So that's what we're working on at the minute.
And isn't it ironic? We're sitting here on the Erne itself during Festival Lough Erne, and of course the whole idea of this is to celebrate creativity and culture and well-being all year round, not just during the festival. And you have a fantastic voice. Where did your interest in music come from?
Thanks very much. My dad's always been very into rock music and stuff. He had me on origami from a very young age, so I just got into that, you know, when I was younger. I was mostly playing a lot of rock music when I was younger. Like, you know, my mother as well, very good taste in music, I must say as well. She's a big Queen fan, so
good taste.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so. But yeah, there wasn't, between my cousins and my aunties and uncles, you know, there's not really much, not really many like musicians anyway that play instruments or anything. Like, you know, my sister had bought a guitar. She was playing in a couple of rock bands when she was younger, and I just wanted a bit of a distraction when I was doing my GCSE. So rather than revise, I just picked up her guitar and just started to teach myself just how to play. So
isn't there something lovely too about the escapism with music? And I know for me, and we're both share a passion for the arts and for music as well. And you were telling me earlier about, you know, the collaborations with Cayman and you know, a few other musicians as well. You've been performing up in Belfast as well this last 6 months.
Oh, yeah. Just before the lockdown hit, yeah, we had a couple of residencies. It was just a ballad group, you know. So just kind of like almost like just like the Dubliners or something, you know. We were just playing a lot of folk songs, and there was a bit of trad music in there as well. So that was myself, and Cayman and Claire McMorrow as well. She was playing the tin whistle for us, who is my partner Colette's sister. So we like to keep it close knit, you know. So even when I'm way up in Belfast, I'm still only playing with people from Fermanagh as well. Like, you know, so we're keeping it all close knit.
I was saying to you that anybody that I ever met from Fermanagh, and this is many years ago before I came to live here, and that was 38 years ago, I always recognised the fact that Fermanagh people, particularly Fermanagh men, were very proud of where they were from and yearned to come back home again. And you were just saying how things have changed and how things have like transformed, like literally not just since lockdown, but like for, you know, when you look at what the activity that's on the lake as well, you know. And I suppose for you, I'm sure that's probably something that you would love to consider, but job and opportunities, I suppose, are rare to find. Oh well, yeah. Well, particularly what I'm doing as well, like, you know, the research science, like, you know, probably Queen's probably even be the closest hub, really, you know, even to Enniskillen. So. Yeah, opportunities are slightly limited in that regard, but I mean, I don't think I'd have any trouble maybe pivoting my career or something as well, you know, to help out maybe, because obviously there's a lot of remote working and stuff going on now as well, like, so I mean, you know, you could always maybe do something like that too, but no, yeah, I would like to move home, like I said, like, you know, I would be quite proud, like, you know, and me and Padraig over here, the man behind the camera, have been to many Fermanagh matches as well over the years as well, showing our colours, so. Yeah. And I suppose too, in terms of kind of this balance that people talk about, you know, work-life balance, how important is your music to you? How important is it for you as a performer, as well as, you know, the opportunity to listen to music, given the nature of the work that you do? Yeah, no, it's incredibly important. You know, I think that's another benefit of being in Belfast. You know, you're exposed certainly to a broader variety of artists, maybe you could say, and that's been huge. Like, you know, I think you know, when I was doing my PhD, I was kind of struggling anyway, you know, in terms of cash flow. That's just how it is, like, you know, but even still, I was still trying to find some money down the side of the sofa, you know, to get to gigs, you know, as well, like, you know, because there's plenty of great venues up in Belfast, and actually still, you know, attracting some big names and stuff as well. So yeah, no, that was a great part actually of being in Belfast as well. That was, yeah, so. And you were playing in the Hollow last night as well. I was, yeah, so that might be why my performance might have been a wee bit rough around the edges there, but yeah, we were up in the Hollow last night as well. It was just myself playing a few ballads, and then so stayed on for a few more pints as well. There's a few familiar faces knocking about, so I had to stay for a few chat as well. Well, look, it's lovely to have you here as part of the Art of Conversation. Thank you. And continued success on and off the stage and the waterways, and look forward to hearing more of your music. Okay, thanks very much for having me. Thank you.
Pull up a seat and play me a tune there, maestro. Play me the craziest song you know. The organs in that key, see all the melodies that sound strange to me. Yeah, keep it lit, let's try to move along. Well, I know that Nixon knows how to party. He's got a mood that can really turn the tide. Pass the buck and forget the E. I've been waiting oh so patiently, but now Dr. Jekyll's got nowhere left to hide. And pass me that bottle of number one, yeah. Give me a sip and a flippin' a bit, but out a beep bop better bow. And try to move along. Well, Willie's got the weakest shake that I know. Man couldn't beat snow from a rope. I told you once I'm not a crook, no need to take a second look. That's why I've never give up hope. Oh, but just pass me that bottle of number one, yeah. Give me a sip, oh, and then a flippity bit, but out a beep bop better bow. And try to move along. Pull up a seat and play me a tune there, maestro. Play me the craziest song you know. I got organs in that key, see all the melodies that sound strange to me. Yeah, keep it lit, let's try to move along. And just pass me that bottle of number one. Give me a sip, I went out a flippin' a bit, but I'll beep bop better bow. And try to move along. Oh yeah, try to move along. Oh, just try to move along. Oh yeah, just try to move along. Ooh.
To read Sandy Bottom from my book The Human Condition. This is a beautiful poem about my childhood, growing up on Lough Erne and fishing with Dad in the boat. And yeah, I'll just jump in. Sandy Bottom. We basked in summer sun, nibbled scant picnics thrown together at will, a rare, meagre overspill from the larder to boat, simple as a hard-boiled egg. Just enough to stave off that pure air starvation. The boat knew its own way to Sandy Bottom, drifted in the same sway as currents, eddies, backflow, the nose pointed, engine cut, and that final run-in hugging the rush, a surge of joy in impatient youngsters. A home-fashioned anchor dropped, secured for us a family spot where many followed. This was the place to be, a social engagement. Families staged their showcase of super swimmers and flounderers, either leaping overboard or thrown in. Peals and squeals piercing quiet afternoon air, a blue cloudless sky watching over all. Sandy clenched toes comforted the woes of fearful, others duck-dived, holding breath underwater, sun lighting the depths of shallows, the shafts of reeds, and always, always that fear the monster pike might strike with its giant jaws. There existed an unspoken rite of passage. We became brave on entering these deep shallows, terrified and exhilarated all at once. One almost fell foul of the flow. It hit hard and stuck fast. Later, vests tucked inside knickers we dried out, or dried in, sunburning backs of necks, bright-eyed and tooth-gapped smiles, knowing we were part of something really precious, pure, simplistic earth-born pleasures, which fed souls and filled holes no wealth could reach, and grand because we had none to speak of. That backstretch to Devonish Island walked on tired legs in slippy shoes, jelly sandals, that rounded the edges of an energetic afternoon, and cow pats, caked crusts needed poking with sticks. All the while a gentle fear of cattle hovered closely as a cloud as we dared each other to climb inside the monastic coffin, stone smoothed with the passing of time, coupling numerous body turns with a healing wish, not for the faint-hearted. That finished out the day, and on the return, a fight for father's faded oilskin coat to wrap me up in, and with that intake of restful breath, the faint scent of man, maleness, safety, strength, that underflow and thrum of a modest outboard motor invited heavy-eyed dozes, eyes cast skyward, and the backs on the boat floor drinking in the beauty of the day, and always, always, someone silently draining the boat with an old bean tin, tarnished, dull grey.
That is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful,
Thank
Kate.
you.
And it's lovely just to hear you read from your own publication. I have always loved this collection of poems, The Human Condition. And I suppose really the idea of the fact that we're in on Mary and Yorn's Lovely Leitrim Barge, perched here on the side of the lake. It's just gorgeous. And tell me why you called it The Human Condition.
I think it's a term, that line just kept coming up for months and months in the lead in to finishing the book, and one day I just thought that feels right, because there's so much inside the book that takes in the complete range of the human condition.
And of course our cargo and the journey, and I remember you talking about the suitcases and how you wanted the front cover to look like as well, and it's a self-published book, and it's a joy to read. It's and a very precious cargo of information about your own journey and your own stories. And I suppose I'm reminded, Kate, of one of the very first performances that were on the Lovely Leitrim Barge, and you and Cayman actually were involved in organising that, the thing itself.
Yes, that's
and
right.
along with Fermanagh Writers,
Yeah.
which you're a very active member of. And I know that you're currently working on another publication with Fermanagh Writers.
Yes, the writers are working on Loch Shorelines, which it's a beautiful project, taking in many people. So Kate Ennels in Cavan, and Monica Corish in Ballyshannon, and Tom Sigafus and Fermanagh Writers. So it'll be a collaboration with wonderful work done by Paddy McAlinden.
Lovely.
So he'll be putting everyone through their paces. He's
And
great fun.
I know Paddy well, and he's
Yeah.
going to be helping you perform.
Yes,
perform
so
the piece
later, possibly late autumn, there will be 3 readings. So one at the Ballyshannon Festival, Lough Erne,
Lovely.
one in Cavan, and one here.
So like a poetry trail of sorts, or is it?
Not sure of the absolute fine details yet, but the anthology is the outcome, which will be wonderful, and that's being edited as we speak.
Yes,
so
I know
good to be
Ken.
involved.
I know Ken Ramsey well. I know Ken was
Yes.
part and parcel of that as well. And of course, John
That's right.
Monaghan and all of the writers are very dedicated and very talented in their own right as
Absolutely.
well. And of course, your son Cayman
Yes.
as well, very very talented. And we were speaking to Luke earlier on, Luke Burns, who has collaborated with Cayman a couple of times. So we're looking forward to his return to the performance stage as well. And you were telling me as well, Kate, I know we both share a passion for education. You
Yes.
currently are working and have worked in the integrated primary school here
Yes,
in
that's
Enniskillen.
right.
And we have a huge interest in the whole area of mental health and well-being
Yes.
and the importance of the arts. So how important is your writing for you? And, particularly during this lockdown and the last 18 months?
Absolutely crucial. You know, in the beginning, I think everybody imagined that people at home who were artists in any way were able to do so much, but that wasn't necessarily the case. You know, people were maybe blocked. Some people, I speak only for myself, you know, I didn't have that flow of gorgeous poems and stories at that time, but little by little it started to come, and I decided to do a journal.
Oh, lovely.
I did a journal on every single day, and just for the routine, at 2:30 every afternoon I made a cappuccino and sat by the window and wrote whatever came, whatever it was.
And the discipline of that flow of consciousness is very, very important as well.
I haven't ever gone back to read it yet, but there's some amazing things in there, and I will one day. I will go back to it. I've worked a little bit as well on a story, which I hope will be a book about autism. It's on the long finger a little bit, but I'm excited about it, so I'm looking forward to that.
There's something too about this time. I too have felt at times where there's been a flow of energy and an interest in being creative, and then at other times to be completely blocked. And I know many artists, you know, share that experience as well. And I think at the beginning of the third lockdown, I declared that this was going to be a period for me as a curious child. And I think if we remember that there's a curious child in all of us, it's quite a healthy thing. And I know the many mutual friends that we have huge respect for the work that you do in the school and in nurturing and encouraging children to learn in very, very and sometimes challenging circumstances in their own lives. And there's a huge appreciation for the work that you do. Kate, you may not necessarily feel it, but I know that you have a lot of people who respect the work that you do.
Thank you, Noelle. It's lovely to hear that.
So you are very much at home on the Erne, and your last poem that you read there reflects that. You were brought up in just near Cornagrade?
Yes, yes. We basically lived as children on the water, and lots of families went out in boats. It was a real community, a real sense of community, and yeah, you know, we still have the blackberry stains in our souls. It's just wonderful to look back on. But for a long time I didn't engage with the water at all. And the lovely thing that's happened recently, I suppose, coming out of the first awful lockdown, a really lovely friend of mine tried to encourage me to come out on the water, and I was reluctant to give in. I don't know. But eventually, yes, we started to kayak.
So I believe you were telling me that, and you and Cayman were out the other day as well.
Kayaked our way out of lockdown, and that has, well, I sort of thought, oh, this is a new love, but you know, he said, no, you're just finding what was already there since you were a child. And the first day we went out, you know, he said, oh, your father would be so proud.
I'm sure.
It's all still there. So my son Cayman and I have been taking the canoes out here from Blue Green yonder, and that's lovely. So,
and I suppose the whole idea of the Festival Lough Erne is to celebrate the waterways, but we are very much passionate about the arts, passionate about creativity, and the fact that the waterways provide such creativity and opportunity all year round, not just for, you know, for one weekend. And I suppose we were speaking to Pat Lunny, who I would regard as one of the guardians of these shores, about the importance of access to this beautiful island town and the waterways. You're going to finish off, Kate, with another piece, another masterpiece.
I've called it The Broad.
Perfect.
The Broad. Rain, breeze, river, seas, you carry in your flow laughter, secrets, tears, lies. Wake and wave wash great reed mace from its stance, reaching upper and low. Your gates thrown open pave the way for that kingfisher lightning quick flyby, that soul-felt flash of blue settling. While in the boat jam, canoe, kayak, curragh, aqua bike, clinker swerve to make way for the floating gin palaces. Clink, clink, the new ice-cooled echo on balmy eaves. Friendly salutes are made to night riders, pedal pushing against whispering winds. Morning mist on McSaint's sorrel plain nods to ancestral spirits in the half-light, dancing. Standing stones on overseeing duty observe fearless skinny dippers as breath-held snappers capture sun and moonset. while they hold a golden hue in their gaze. You wrap the hunting season shots of gaming guns in your island sanctuaries, and sniff the waft of smoke-blackened, fire-scorched tea kettles at dawn. Foraging fingers are upon the ditches, berry red and bramble torn. You caretake the fair weather visitors. Yet seldom a mention is made these days of your currents. Legend has it that you snatch the bones of a being every 7 years, but somehow it feels as though the legend ought catch itself up of late.
It's been a few years now since this bird line was word. No boat, no bike's been found, but still the world goes round and round. And I know one day I'll roam when the time to roam is right.
So Mary and Jorn, it is just lovely to be here on the Lovely Leitrim Barge.
Very welcome.
Thank you for hosting us.
You're welcome.
And I know we spoke earlier that with the COVID restrictions at the minute, that unfortunately you're not open to the public.
Yeah, no, we're not going to open for another while till the restrictions ease completely.
And I suppose I've got to know you over this last 4 years. I also had my exhibition here, Precious Cargo too.
Yeah, that was brilliant. It was
And
one
it
of
was
the
just
most
lovely.
memorable days
It
on the
was
boat.
just fantastic. And we had Aidan Bar and Carol O'Gable opened it and was part of Fermanagh Live, and it was just a lovely celebration, and again on the waterways. So Mary, you're originally from Galway.
Yeah, Gort in County Galway.
And you've always had a passion for the arts and for the quirky.
Yeah.
And it's reflected so well in not only the design of the barge, but also in what and how you've decorated as well. The furnishings, the sculptures, the art.
I love interiors. I love doing up interiors. I really enjoy it.
And the way too you present your food as well. You did a beautiful selection of food and canapes out at Hamley and Hamley.
Oh yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah.
Gorgeous, absolutely delicious. And you're from Norway.
Correct.
And we celebrated Norwegian Day here in Enniskillen on the 17th of May.
Yeah.
And I think you were just overwhelmed by the response from the Enniskilleners. You know?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Lots of boats came along for the parade.
Yes. So you are very much part of this place. You have made a lot of friends here, those that are based on the land and those that are fellow barge owners.
Boaters, yeah.
And we were speaking as well with Angela and Mark as well.
Yeah, they're good friends of
And
ours.
who are very, very
Yeah.
good friends. And the last time I was speaking to you was with Clara down in Carragh and Shannon. You were
Oh yeah, that's right.
you were there
yeah.
as well. You were moored. So, what's the attraction with Enniskillen? Why do you love it so much?
Well, I suppose there's a lot of places we like, but we seem to like the winters in Enniskillen, don't we? And we love living out at Knocknilly. It's really peaceful. And I love the Canadian geese. They're just amazing. It's a wildfowl reserve, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really nice. And we've lovely friends. And so Karen is kind of related to me. So
Yes.
she's been a great support
Yes,
to us and
yes.
introduced us to so many people.
She's a lovely. She's a mutual friend of ours as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose, Jorn, for you, you're very much at home here as well. And for someone who's from Norway, you feel very much.
Oh yeah, I find the people in Enniskillen extremely friendly.
And you are a musician, a very talented musician as well. And I know
Yeah,
you've
thank you.
performed. You performed on the very first night we were here.
All right.
And you were telling me earlier that you have one of the smallest recording studios.
Yeah.
And as we know, talent and creativity comes in all shapes and sizes. Tell me a little bit about how you came about designing this, because this was a very much a passion project as
Yeah,
well.
it's a new build. So we went to Peterborough, wasn't it, and had ordered the steel and had it all laser cut and delivered to Ballinamore. And it was welded there by these Polish guys. And then we took it to Kesh Kerrigan and Charlie. Have you met Charlie?
I've met
Fresh
Charlie, yes.
Yeah, he did all the interior, and then we got electricians and plumbers, and so we did a lot of it ourselves inside.
In terms then of lockdown, I know that has been a huge challenge, to any business, particularly involved in, the entertainment aspect and also in terms of hospitality. What's been the biggest challenge for you?
I suppose not working. I get really fed up some days. I really enjoy preparing the food and the whole having the guests in and the whole buzz of it all. So I miss that a lot.
And you provide lots of opportunities for private parties.
Yeah.
And you've had a wedding as well.
I've had 2 weddings actually.
2 weddings.
Yeah, which were fantastic.
Because I remember you told me about the first wedding. When was it? Or what was that?
Must be 2 years ago now. Is it 3 years ago?
No, something like that.
Yeah, that was magic. Got married in Lough Erne, and then we took them on a cruise and did their dinner party, wedding party. It was really good. It was really good. We're going to do a few private gigs over the winter, you know, and just kind of, I don't know if we'll charge in, we'll try and keep it kind of quiet, not quiet, but, you know, maybe make a club or something. So Frankie Lane's going to start it off, you know, Frankie from the Flag Cowboys.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And have about 20 people in here. So,
Excellent.
See how that goes.
And of course we have Clara Treacy, who's going to be
Yeah,
performing
I'm looking
as well.
forward to that.
And Clara is from Enniskillen, a very talented and gifted singer-songwriter as well, and launching her new album too.
Will you sing a Norwegian song?
I think it'd be great.
Hvor mange netter en hemmelighet? Hvor mange ord en tåre? Hvor mange sekunder et kinn hvis hånden din? Hvor mange netter en hemmelighet? Hvor mange ord en tåre? Mange sekunder et kinn hvis hånden din? Hvor mange sekunder et kinn hvis hånden din? Hvor mange masker gjemmer drømmer? Sekunder i hemmelighet. Hvor mange masker? Hvor mange masker? Hvor mange masker gjemmer drømmer? Sekunder i hemmelighet.
There is a road that runs wild in a story with hand-painted illustrations. Or is it a window? Stained glass, Harry Clark, wide-eyed nymphs. If I look through, do I touch you? Grand Central Hotel, molten rainbow stream, naked salt crystal light. Painting brushstrokes live, rice spoons rise and sink. Watch, no hands, endless sheets, endless breath, otherless. And the first question that I asked you: Do you believe? Do you believe in soulmates? Do you believe? Do you believe in soulmates? Harry, Mr. Clark. Dearest 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 Harry, Mr. Clark. In her beauty the light flows. Kinda touch her for one night. And if life were a painting and the painter a rose, it's her stigma the flesh knows. She said love is not blind, it sees and doesn't mind. Love is not blind, it sees and doesn't mind. Love is not blind, it sees and doesn't mind. Do you believe? Do you believe in? Do you believe? Do you believe? Do you believe? Do you believe in soulmates?
Clara, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me, Noelle.
We are
So
perched
thrilled.
here on the Lovely Leitrim Barge. We had a conversation a few weeks ago about the potential of you performing on the barge during the Festival Lough Erne, and here we are.
Here we are, and we risked it for a biscuit and did it up outside, even though there's thunderous clouds.
Absolutely.
Like, and the people will probably see the shot. But
It's just beautiful. And the lovely thing about it as well
sunshine.
is that you are back home in the island town of Enniskillen, born and bred. And the lovely thing as well is that you are many things as well as a musician and a singer-songwriter. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
well, I mean, everyone has to have their bread and butter gig as well. But as I was actually, mine is quite cool. I was calling it that the other night at a gig, and someone was like, "No, that's inappropriate." So am I calling it my fromage and champers job?
Okay.
Is representing Bleu in France and the Benelux.
Yes.
So that involves eating a lot of fancy cheese and attending some exciting events. Like actually just came back from the Cheese World Cup, which was on in the Loire Valley at the weekend. And yeah.
And then you had a gig the night before
I
last?
had, well, so basically, yeah, I had to, Bleu very kindly agreed to let me fly home early from the Cheese World Cup so that I could play my first gig back out and at it again since COVID in the Grand Social, which is one of my favourite venues in Dublin. It's like a circus tent.
You have been based in Dublin for how long now?
I have been in Dublin for the last 6 years. I left Paris in 2015 and I was in Paris for 6 years before that.
And you studied law initially?
Oh, you have the CV, Noelle. Yes, originally I went to Paris to pursue my dream of working in a French law firm, which lasted 6 months, and then that dream died a death. And I loved Paris though, and I decided to stay on there and get a job in a jazz cafe. And it was kind of, I suppose there was an element of like where there was like freedom over there. That, like, you know, I was able to, you know, work behind the bar and kind of start gigging and everything, and no one really knew like what I was doing. Do you know, I don't know if I had like taken up like full-time job in Charlie. I used to work in Charlie's actually.
Yes.
But like, you know, with my degree, if that would have been okay, it was like very liberating, I think, being in Paris, and then able to I started kind of performing in that jazz cafe in the third year. The first 2 years I was just there working behind the bar and I never sang a note, didn't play the piano. I was really shy, and then I was like, And of course it's in the blood, it's in the DNA, the music is definitely there. And we were talking earlier about the opportunity to be self-expressed and the importance of creativity, and it's very evident, Clara, from the way you perform, how you dress, how you stage your performances. There's a lovely piece of theatre associated with that, and has that always been there, or do you think that was... It was a dramatic household, Noelle, growing up. High drama. No, it was great. Well, obviously, in the best possible way. My mum up there in the wheelhouse. Yes, no, it was wonderful, and like mum always encouraged us to like get up and perform at the Fermanagh Feis every year, and I like to think of like we all kind of ended up being a little bit musical, because she was taking 5 choirs a week after school every day. Like while we were in the womb as well and
Yes.
singing away. So I
Yes.
think that it was just kind of ingrained in us, and definitely it's not of the wind I took it, you could say, with the theatrical drama queens in
So
the family.
what's next? Do you have a new album coming out?
I have, yeah. I was even thinking one good thing in my life that came out of COVID was the album. I recorded that last year, and then this year I was looking for a label to release it, and I'm just thrilled to say that I just signed the record deal yesterday.
Excellent.
with-
And what's the name of the album? What's the name of the
the
album?
album is called Black Forest. Some people, I don't know, I have a song by that name, so it's
Yes, I know the song.
you know
Yes.
the song. And yeah, it's I'm really happy actually that it's finally, like, I'm a total perfectionist, Noelle. I could have probably, I don't know, like, I feel like in some ways it's my second album. I just didn't record, you know, some of the earlier, like, you know, Frenchy songs that I used to play. I just really was like, there's so much to get right, and I'm really happy with it now. Like, I think the arrangements really came together, and got to play them live for the first time, and I have a gig coming up in Dundalk now with the drummer, and yeah, it's all like, I always kind of have definitely been kind of hiding in the shadows until I like figured out the sound, and not really trying to promote myself that much, but I think I'd be happy to play, you know, on barges and any gigs now for
And
anyone that have
are
one.
you going to stay in Dublin, or what are your plans?
I'm actually moving to Belfast, back up to
Excellent.
the north. My sister was living in Dublin, Emily. He's a great performer as well,
Yeah.
and she moved back to the north and got her northern accent back. I know obviously now this is going out to the Fermanagh, people are going to be like, where's that southern accent come from? So I think if I go to Belfast I should get the northern twang back on the go, and there's just a really good music scene as well up there.
We were speaking to Luke earlier about that, and about the importance of being exposed to so many different genres as well.
Yeah,
you
there's
know.
great, like, there's actually a jazz scene. I think
Yes.
there's a better jazz scene in Belfast even than there is in Dublin. And the band I'm supporting next week, they're from Belfast, so the plan is to make friends with them and then have a ready-made batch of musician friends for when I move up there at the end of the month.
Clara, I have no doubt you will continue to make your mark in your very creative and unique way, and I know this will be the first of many more gigs in your hometown.
I look forward to them. Thank you so much for your support,
Thank you so
Noelle.
much, and congratulations. You have a lot to be proud of.
The song is The Isle of Kathleen, that I mentioned just kind of unintelligently to Noelle a few weeks ago when I visited this lovely Leitrim Barge, and she didn't forget about it. And I kind of just mentioned it in passing. I was like, I was writing a song about Kathleen's Island, Enniskillen, called The Isle of Kathleen, and then she got on to me yesterday and was like, oh, Clara, you know, because I said I'd do the Harry Clark song about the stained glass window painter, you know, Noelle being a painter, and she was like, so you'll do the Isle of the Kathleen song? And I was like, oh, this doesn't have a second verse. So I was up last night writing the second verse, and I hope that I will remember the lyrics of said second verse. And yeah, so it's getting its first outing here on the lake, which is very nice. No one has heard it, including my mother, who is here on the boat. And so no one, I don't know if it's a good song or not, but hopefully it will be okay. Purple's the reds, pinks in the green, traces you left on the Isle of Kathleen. I am messing around, and so messed up around. Why I love the man that you are, and all of the ways that you are in my skin. You were bathed in electric
gold, making kingdoms bold as brass, could never be told. You were bathed in the Faroe Lakes, Craken Kingdom, Kathleen's kingdom, bold as brass, could never be told. It was always me.
Thank you for joining me here on The Art of Conversation with Noelle Mc Alinden. Here as we celebrate the waterways during Festival Lough Erne. My thanks to all who have participated, our sponsors and our guests, and most of all our friends. My thanks to Pat Lunny, the guardian of the shore, Angela and Mark Mullholland from the NOLA Barge, Jorn and Mary from the Lovely Leitrim Barge. Huge thanks to our performers Clara Treacy, to Luke Burns and to Kate O'Shea. My thanks to Olivia Cosgrove from Row The Erne, and a huge thanks to Barry and Claire from the Discovery Island experience.
Only me. Purples, the reds, pinks and the green, traces you left on the Isle of Kathleen. I am messing around, and so messed up around. Why I love the man that you are, and all of the ways that you are.